in physics?
Yes, well, I've been fortunate enough. I've been working with good collaborators. I have been having great mentors, but yes, I have been facing some struggles. One of those was the fighting against conscious and unconscious bias on top of doing my research. So that has been like this the struggle that was difficult to manage because it's exhausting, and I mean it happens in many fields, not only in physics. The way I tackle that, I learned to choose my battles, right? Because I don't want to just burn out fighting everyone all the time, proving myself, I have to do my research. So sometimes I have to choose, should I pick the battle or doesn't worth it? I just focus on my research, do good work and keep going.
Yes. I have severe imposter syndrome. I never believe that I'm good enough for whatever it is that I'm doing, right? Whether it's I'm in a class, and even though I get like the highest grades on the exam and I ask all the right questions, I still have this feeling of like, oh, but wait, like I'm the only one. Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm not seeing it correctly, and that has followed me my entire career. Unfortunately, even now, I still have imposter syndrome. I'm like the face of physics at the Exploratorium, and it's like, oh, but am I really capable of that? Like, I don't know. Like, I think you have the wrong person, and that's something that's really sad to me. But it's also something that I think I like to talk about freely, because I think a lot of people who look like me feel this way, and they either don't have a word for it or they don't understand what it is, and I would like to help them understand it so they can overcome it. I've talked to many people about it, and I learned that everyone has imposter syndrome. It's just a matter of like learning to deal with it. Like you just have to live with it. You just have to tell yourself over and over again, like, no, I'm fine, But in science, in physics, like everyone feels this way, even though they don't necessarily show you that, which is the problem, right? That's the thing. It's like these white men physicists are very confident, and they're like, no, which makes you feel even less confident. It's like, oh, but they're so sure about themselves, and I'm not, so they must be right. And that's a huge thing too. And I can't say that it has ever helped my career necessarily, aside from helping me to be humble all of the time. Like I'm always very humble about who I am and where I came from, and like I know that I'm not the best physicist ever, right? But I'm a physicist and I worked hard to get here, and I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know, and I'm very happy to share that with people. But I would say one thing that helped me get through a lot of that was finding my people, right? And like finding affinity groups like SACNAS, or like in undergrad I found SHIP, right? The Society for Hispanic Physicists and Engineers. And we formed a tutoring group, and we would go to schools in LA and like tutor kids in Latino neighborhoods to like help them, whatever. We were tutoring them in like English and math and whatever it was that they needed help with. But it was just being with that group of people and knowing that like they're all feeling the same way that I'm feeling, right? And so there's some like, and that's the thing about like Latino culture, like we are very community based, right? We're very familial. And I think having your family and your community around you really helps a lot.
A ver, pues algunos de los obstáculos que yo he enfrentado en mi carrera, yo creo que no tanto tienen que ver con mi calidad de mujer, sino como persona en general, ¿no? Y son muy comunes, y uno de ellos es la falta de confianza, porque de repente, pues por ejemplo, cuando estás empezando el posgrado, hay muchas cosas que no sabes, y entonces pues fallas constantemente, ¿no? O te cuesta mucho trabajo, entonces eso pues genera a veces una cierta desconfianza en ti, ¿no? Dices, bueno, a ver, tal vez no soy suficientemente capaz, pero bueno, eso pues lo vas trabajando y lo superas poco a poco. Entonces eso creo que es una de las dificultades que he vivido, ¿no? Cuando te afrontas algo así un poco difícil en el trabajo, bueno, pero pues lo superas. Bueno, en particular sí, de ser mujer, creo que una de las dificultades sería que en nuestra sociedad mexicana a veces las mujeres no hablan, no se manifiestan con la misma intensidad que los hombres. Entonces, pues a veces te limitas a no participar en las reuniones o dar tu opinión, etcétera. Pero esto es algo que creo que es muy importante que tomes conciencia si te está ocurriendo y pues poco a poco pues puedas superar esa barrera y manifestarte, ¿no? Con la misma intensidad. Entonces creo que esas son las dos cosas que tal vez me han pasado.
Hay veces que, no sé, los profesores te pueden tratar diferente por ser mujer, como tal vez no te toman tan en serio. En mi experiencia eso ya casi no pasa, es más bien cosas que escucho de generaciones anteriores, afortunadamente. Eso es un reto muy grande. También creo que a veces las mujeres tendemos a dudar un poco más de nosotras mismas. No sé, he escuchado que cosas como que si un hombre y una mujer toman un examen, a veces la mujer tiende a sentir que lo hizo mucho peor y el hombre tiende a sentir que lo hizo mucho mejor, cuando en realidad lo hicieron igual. Pues también otra cosa es que a veces cuando eres la única mujer puede llegar a ser un poco incómodo, como, no sé, culturalmente estar solo con hombres. Entonces, a veces como que eso propicia cuando hay círculos con muchos hombres, como que nadie quiere ser la primera mujer que rompe ese círculo de hombres, pero en mi experiencia, una vez que llega una mujer, llegan más. Por ejemplo, en el laboratorio en el que hice mi doctorado, somos casi 50% de los estudiantes son mujeres, pero todo empezó con una mujer que decidió que, ok, voy a meterme aquí. Y eso está padre también. Pues sí, superar esa sensación de inseguridad es también un reto grande. La familia, eso también es un reto muy grande, porque pues si una mujer quiere tener hijos y tener una familia, obviamente va a tener un impacto en la carrera.
I'm actually, I don't know if you knew this, I'm actually a mother, and I have a child of 16 months now. And it's a really weird perspective to be a woman in physics with a child. Like, it makes you change. Yeah, I was responsible for all the material, and when I went back, I had to take the exams I missed and everything. It was a chaotic semester, and then the one after that was last semester. No, I mean August. No, yes, that's August. I wasn't actually sure how to do my classes, because you get used to your usual routine, before the baby. But after the baby, it was just a struggle of how much can I take, how will it be, and it's been a process. But I think, well, I used to think I finally got it, then came COVID. So yes, but I have to admit, this semester, when I was forced to stay at home, and at first my baby was with me 24/7, and I had to somehow find time to study on my own. This semester was too much for me. Yeah. I failed one class. It's my first time ever failing a class. So
I think that the main obstacle is really this environment that it's super male dominated. Um, I think many people who grew up and were educated in a different generation just see this ratio, like let's say 90-10, as natural, and they don't see a problem. And so there's a lot of reluctance to change. And so I don't think that they mean wrong, but at the same time, it makes it an unfriendly environment. And so I think that this change is going to take some time, and some conscious efforts have to be made by people who make decisions. Uh, so maybe requiring to have one female hire per every male hire, one minority hire per every non-minority hire, because if we just wait until this thing balances naturally, it's going to take 100 years. So I think that some conscious effort has to be made, and this goes higher up because it just trickles down all the way. So again, if as a student you don't see professors who are female or minorities, and then you somehow decide to major in physics and then go to grad school, and then you see that even less people are female or minorities, but you still succeed, and then you become a postdoc, and this just gets even narrower and narrower and narrower. So it just becomes less and less welcoming, and this has to be changed from the top to the bottom. At the same time, that I think that now a lot of good initiatives have been made to get little girls and middle school age girls interested in science and STEM. That's very good. So there's a lot of interest, right? But then when they go to college, we get to this phenomenon that they bump into everybody being a male. So if these efforts from the bottom can be met with efforts from the top, so that they also see that there's female professors, they have role models, they have allies, they have mentors, this is just going to increase exponentially.
So in general, I think it's just like stereotypes, what we have lived in and think things should be like. And I know that's changing, but they think, as we know, that men should be working in these things and women should be in these others. So yeah, basically stereotypes of what people should be learning and doing. And also like being afraid of being different or being alone doing it. Because me, when I was in high school, and I said I was going to the United States, and they told me, no, you should like stay here for at least your first degree, and then so it's not harder for you, or you're not alone, you can go then to the United States. So I think it's something similar to how people is scared to like be alone or make a change. They think they're not able to do it because of those stereotypes that exists already.
I think we still have the momentum from many years of pushing in one direction, that women supposed to be one type of studies, one area. But that's one of the things that is it can be reversed, and we hope it can be. It just requires sometimes it requires a push from within. Sometimes external effects can actually change the dynamics. I can tell you a nice story. When I was in Cornell in the veterinary school, there's a nice long corridor where they have pictures of all the classes, incoming classes for the veterinary students. It goes back from the last century. So they're black and white pictures, and there's like, I don't know, 10, 20 per class, very few. It keeps growing with time, and then it goes from black to color. And then, as you see, it's always men in the pictures. Once you go to the 80s, then you start seeing a couple of women in the classes. It starts getting a little bit more. and then by the 80s or the 90s, it's half and half. You see half of the class is male, half of the class is female.
Pues creo que mucho de ello tiene que ver con la expectativa de ellas mismas, de sus familias, de la comunidad. Si a uno le dicen que eso no es cosa de mujeres, pues uno se la va a creer, ¿no? Y si siempre esa expectativa de que no, que es muy difícil para ti hacer esto, pues si no tienes ese apoyo y los ejemplos también, o sea, creo que también tener los modelos, los role models a seguir, ¿no? Si no ves a mujeres en la física, pues te cuesta verte a ti como mujer en la física, creo. Y lo mismo con las minorías étnicas, ¿no? Entonces creo que eso es, y eso es una de las cosas en las que ayuda a ir a estos congresos del Society of Hispanic Physicists y cosas así, que uno puede ver lo que han logrado otros, todo esto de hacer outreach y tener y exponer para que los estudiantes puedan ver el trabajo que han hecho los hispanos y las mujeres y otras minorías en las ciencias. Entonces eso simplemente porque en muchos casos lo que he visto que, por ejemplo, cuando hacemos estos programas de outreach, en muchos casos ni siquiera se les había ocurrido que esa podría ser una profesión a seguir, ¿no? O sea, les interesa lo que estamos haciendo, pero nunca les había cruzado en la mente que eso es algo que les podría interesar como profesión.